Welcome to another episode of Riding and Wrenching, the biggest little YouTube channel on the entire interwebs. I am your host, Q the Rider, and in today's episode, we're going to talk about the most painful drop that I've had doing slow speed riding, and you just saw it. In fact, on that day, I fell twice, but I only recorded one of my drops, and so I shared the one with you that you saw, and unfortunately, that was the most painful of the two drops. So I'm going to share with you some lessons learned for me from that incident. Hopefully, they'll give you some things to think about when you go out and get your slow speed practice in. Before I get started, I want to recognize my sponsor, Volunteer Audio, who's been supporting me all year. I'm very grateful and I appreciate your support. If you're looking for a phenomenal audio system upgrade for your Harley, reach out to them and let them know that I sent you. My second sponsor are my channel members, and I want to thank each and every one of you for continuing to support me in my YouTube journey. If you're not a channel member and you're interested in being one, check the description of this video. I would greatly appreciate it. Let's get into it. So I've got 6 things that I learned from this most painful of drops. The first one is to make sure that someone that loves you and knows you, that they know where you are if you're practicing by yourself. Because in the example that I provided earlier, had I gotten seriously injured, maybe if I'd broken my ankle or my leg or something, I would have been stuck because I wouldn't have been able to get up, I imagine, or God forbid, maybe you get knocked out or just something awful happens. Someone needs to know where you are. It's probably best to practice with someone else so that in the event something goes wrong, they can help you. Most cases, nothing bad happens, but that particular day, there it goes. Something bad happened. Again, I didn't get hurt. I got a couple of minor scrapes. I scraped my knee, my elbow, and I banged my thumb. And I have no idea what I banged my thumb on. I actually think I must have hit the bike while I was falling. I don't know. But again, the bottom line, make sure someone knows where you are and how long you're going to be out there. This way, if they don't hear from you, they can come look for you. The second takeaway for me, in particular when I'm practicing a pattern that I'm unfamiliar with, but it's probably good for any type of practice, but do some warm-up. And my warm-up is going to consist of making sure I'm practicing my full locks, and I do a couple of just tight U-turns and make sure I get the feel down for getting to the maximum lean. Because one of the things that I noticed when I edited the video is the circle, or that right before I fell, that 360 that I was doing, I wasn't at maximum lean. I could have leaned a little bit farther and tightened that circle up and I would have been fine. But I didn't. That was actually, I was kind of running through that cold. So some warm-ups would have been valuable for me. So I'm going to make sure that I do that going forward. Just practice my turns, do some 360s and make sure I'm nice and tight and getting the max lean as well as full lock on the handlebars. Next takeaway for me is the type of cones that I've been using. On that particular day, I put out a lot of cones because I think they look good on video. And I also like the fact that it's a little bit more intimidating having a lot of cones out there. But unfortunately, the type of cones that I've been using, they slide. And I discovered that the hard way, even though I was warned. So I'll give you an example here. So here's one of the cones. This is an 18-inch cone. And what happened is that my front tire rode up onto the side of this cone. And I was leaning the bike and had the handlebars turned. And that's what happened to my front tire. It was turned and it just started sliding. And it took the bike out right from underneath me. Wasn't a whole lot that I could do. And it happened so fast, I wasn't expecting it. And it was just in the blink of an eye. And I'm like, holy crap, I'm on the ground. So, I mean, what are you going to do? But these particular cones aren't ideal for this type of practice. And one of my lock and lean instructors did warn me about these cones. So what I'm going to continue using them, but I'm going to use them more strategically and make sure that I do not have them in places where I'm going to be at an apex of a turn, or I know my bike is going to be leaning and there's a risk that if I make a mistake and run wide, that I don't repeat the same mistake again. So I've got different types of cones, and so I'm going to use these taller cones where it makes sense, and where it's not safe to do so, I'm not going to have them there. So I've got them here today. This particular pattern that I have set up, it's courtesy of my good buddy Jogo from Jogo's Motorcycle Adventures. So I set this pattern up that he created. I'm going to test it out today, and it's basically a cone weave, a series of cone weaves going through here. And it's something that's good for me to practice, but I'm not anticipating running over any of these cones today, so hopefully we don't have any problems. Number 4 thing that contributed to my injuries on that day is failure to wear proper safety gear. The only safety gear that I had on was a helmet. Fortunately, I did have jeans on, and which probably reduced the injury to my knee a little bit, but if I'd had proper riding jeans on, I could have avoided the scraping my knee at all. And if I'd had a jacket on like this Beyond Riders jacket that I'm wearing, that has protection for your elbows, your shoulders, and then there's also a pad on the back. I don't know if you can see that, but this jacket provides good protection, and had I been wearing this jacket, I would not have the scrape that's currently on my elbow about right there. Again, it's not real bad, but it was completely avoidable if I'd had the proper gear on. Fortunately, I did have my helmet on, and that came into play because I actually fell twice that day. I only showed you one of the drops. The first drop, I actually hit the back of my head, but I had my helmet on, so it wasn't that big of a deal. So I'm glad I had the helmet on, but I did not have gloves on. Gloves may or may not have helped, I'm not sure. Certainly would not have made it worse, so I should have had them on. So today when I'm practicing, I'm going to have my gloves on. Something else is that I ruined a perfectly good pair of shoes because my foot hit the ground. Now, the shoes that I had on that day were not riding boots. Fortunately, they were good enough to protect me, but a proper pair of motorcycle boots would have kept me from injuring myself at all. So today, I don't know if you're going to be able to see them, but I've got on my Indy Ridge boots. And so if I hit my foot with these, that's not going to be any problem at all. So wearing proper safety gear is very important anytime you ride. Number 5, keep your feet on the floorboard. If I had only done that, I could have avoided all the injuries because I would not have fallen off the bike the way that I did. Big contributor to the way I fell is that I put my foot down. And of course, my foot stuck, but the bike kept moving. And but for the grace of God, my foot did not get trapped behind the saddlebags. But it still contributed to the fall, because once I put my foot down, that was a wrap. That caused me to fall. That was a big contributor. Now, I may have still been thrown off of the bike just because of the way the front tire slid out, or maybe I would have fallen off. I don't know. Or maybe I could have avoided falling off if I had just kept my feet down. Now, the downside, or the challenging part to this for me, is I don't know how to practice keeping my foot down. I really don't. But what I'm going to do is a technique that I learned when I took the Champ Riding School, and they talked about having a mantra, or basically some reminders, some things that you're going to say or do before you ride. And one of my things that's going to be in my mantra now, keep your feet on the floorboard at all times. The only time I'm going to take my foot off the floorboard is when that bike comes to a stop, or at least that's my goal. Now, we're fighting against human nature. Human nature is to put your feet down, stick your hands out, and all sorts of horrible things. Those things are going to contribute to you falling, and they certainly did for me on that day. So I've got to be more careful about that and just remind myself every time I get on the bike, no matter what, keep your feet on the floorboard. And last but not least, number 6, don't get cocky, because I think I got real cocky that day because I was wearing a t-shirt and jeans and no gloves. You know, that was a recipe for disaster, and you know, that day disaster struck. Fortunately, you know, again, I didn't get hurt real bad. A couple of minor scrapes, you know, not that big of a deal, but scrapes that were avoidable. But the key contributor was that I got cocky because I practiced enough that I don't expect to fall. You know, most times when I come out here and practice, I don't fall. You know, I might clip a few cones or knock a couple of cones over, but I don't fall. But on that particular day I did, and I wasn't prepared for it. So going forward in the future, again, part of my mantra is going to be, don't get cocky, keep your feet on the floorboards, and make sure you have on your gear. So that's my mantra going forward. Hopefully this helped you out, gave you some inspiration and things to do while you're practicing. I hope I'm not discouraging anybody from practicing, because falls are going to happen. And the way I'm going to look at this fall is the one that you saw, it puts me one step closer to getting better and avoiding these types of falls in the future. Because what happened to me out here with these cones could have happened anywhere. Maybe I hit some leaves instead of a cone and took the front wheel out. And again, you go stick your foot down, and now you're laying in the middle of the street. So anything could happen, but that's why I'm here practicing, and I'm hoping to encourage you to practice as well. This is Q. I'm riding, I'm wrenching, I'm out.
We already talked about what keeps the bike up, right? Sufficient power to the rear wheel. So if that's what keeps it up, anytime I feel it falling, that's the answer. So when you say, how do I make this bike fall stylistic? Well, first of all, we don't want it to fall. So open up that damn clutch, right? Provide sufficient power. But if it is gonna fall, what are you riding?
Ultra.
Keep your feet on the boards. You have engine guards and saddlebag guards. That's not a question, I know you do. So that bike will ride on the engine guard and saddlebag guard until it comes to rest. And once it stops, you can just put your foot out, right?